All. Problem with Arizona is that we look at we always look at taxes piecemeal, and you cannot look at a tax system piecemeal. So the problem is that we become overly dependent on one form of tax or the other. Most states, and I love it when people throw out, well, in Texas they do this, and in Wyoming they do this, and in Nevada they do that. Their financial, their economy is so totally different than ours. And you cannot compare Arizona's economy. People ask me, what is your economic development plan that would put us on par with Texas? I said, it's easy. Let's go find a bunch of oil. That would change everything, right? We don't have oil in Arizona, and so we can't say that we're like Texas. I guess we could create a second Las Vegas and be like Nevada. We got to look at what's right for Arizona. 20 years ago, the state legislature basically got the state out of the property tax business. And whether that was good or bad, people will be on both sides. What it's done is it's eliminated one of the three legs that would normally exist in any tax system, which is property, income, sales, and then maybe excise taxes and fees, things like that. So in Arizona, we have a unique issue because we overly depend upon sales tax and on income tax and things like that. I would look at the entire tax system because I think our taxing system, I learned this in the city, is out of whack with the economic realities. Our taxing system was really developed post-World War II. We learned to depend upon a certain economy, and the post-World War II economy was an economy of exchange of goods, primarily, of people who didn't move, of property values that didn't accelerate. They were pretty steady, 2% a year. And so we had a very well-based tax system. Was based on a three-legged stool. Well, then all of a sudden you hit the 70s and the boom in property values, and that meant property taxes were out of whack because politicians couldn't resist the temptation to just let the rates ride and say, I didn't raise property tax rates. Well, yeah, but you did raise property taxes because the levy is the most important thing in property tax. Income in the 90s with the dot-com boom and things got distorted. Sales tax has been really distorted because we're no longer purely a goods-based economy. We're primarily a service-based economy. Just looking in here, how many of you are service-based? And so our taxing system is out of whack with the realities of the economy. I would want to look at overall our tax policy and see what we can do to bring the tax policy in line with the economic realities. That's how you guard against the wild swings in tax revenue. That is a Herculean task. People don't like to do that, which is why we tend to piecemeal it. Why we tend, like last year, to look at the TPT, prime contracting, and when we piecemeal, we don't fully comprehend the unintended consequences. We also have a challenge in Arizona because we have the reality that we can easily reduce tax revenue, but it's almost impossible to increase tax revenue. That's not a bad concept, but it makes for horrible policy in the sense that you can't find that balance. And this was the problem with the TPT last year. I advanced, or as a mayor, I got my mayors to sign on to simplification, one license, one pay, those kind of things. But when you got into things like prime contracting, where people didn't know what the impact would be, if it caused a reduction in revenue, an unintended reduction in revenue, and I'm all for lowering taxes, but I think it should be understood, I think it should be planned, I think it should be part of an overall strategy. If you have an unintended drop in revenues, you can't recover that. You cannot go back and say, oops, we made a mistake, and change that. So what that does is that actually serves as a huge disincentive to truly put in place tax reform. That should change because we have a tax system that frankly is not working. We have a school financing system that frankly is not working, but we're afraid to tinker with it because the politics are difficult, but because the structure we've set up. I'm very leery about any major tax change because if it doesn't work out exactly as we have, we could find ourselves in a real problem and not be able to recover from it. We need a government that is financed to the level it can be effective. I'm a champion of efficient government. In the city of Mesa, we balanced our budget, even though we had a $62 million revenue shortfall. We didn't impose a temporary or ask the voters for a temporary tax. We reduced the size of government. That's my record. I think that tax increases are a lazy man's game. But on the other hand, I need a government that has enough resources to be effective. We don't want a government that's on the cheap. There's a difference between being efficient and being cheap. We are enamored with cheap in Arizona, and we will pay the price for that. We need a government that can be effective, because an effective government helps us all to succeed better. I remember a meeting I was in where one of the legislators who had cut the state budget so much and was bragging about it, we were in this meeting and there was a huge problem with water issues. And this was a legislative leader said, I will commit to you the full resources of the Arizona Department of Water Resources to fix this problem. And there was a farmer out there and he said, Senator, you've completely gutted the Department of Water Resources. There are no resources there. There's nobody there that can help me on this. And he was just looking like he had no answer, because it was true. He was promising that the government could go do this when he had gutted the department, and so there was nobody home to be able to do it. Well, that's dumb. That's dumb. We don't want bloated government. I absolutely detest bloated government. That's not my record. But on the other hand, we need a tax system that creates a well-financed, fairly financed, effective government. And that's what I would do as governor. I know that was a long and convoluted answer, but wanted to make sure my point was made.